everybody, and welcome back to the Consummate Athlete Podcast. I'm Molly Herford.
And I'm Peter Glassford.
In today's episode, we connected with our good friend Trish Bromley, who is the first woman to participate in Crankworx Speed and Style event. So what does that mean?
I actually wrote an article about this, and we'll link to that in the show notes. But last August, so 2015 August, Trish sort of succeeded at one of her longtime goals of participating in Crankworx. And basically Speed and Style is a head-to-head event where they go over lots of jumps and do tricks. And
on bikes.
On bikes. We're on bikes today. But it's sort of a high-flying thing, but there's also a bit of a speed component to it. So it's actually a sort of interesting discipline where they combine, again, speed and style, and there's a bit of judging and then also a speed component. And you can definitely look that up on Red Bull TV. I'll try and find some links to sort of explain more of speed and style and how that differs from something like a slope style or just straight jumping.
It's pretty interesting. Can you think of any other sport that does that?
There's a couple different sports, I think, like, or disciplines and things like snowboarding and whatnot where that's come more from.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting thing because there's usually you got like your figure skating or something is a certain amount of time, but you're judged entirely on the execution. Or you have something like a moto, like a endurance motorcycle or dirt bike event. I'm trying to think what that's like a hare scramble or something where it's very time based, and so it's sort of a controlled time, but it's very much against the clock, and no one really cares how you look. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's definitely a cool discipline, but. So Trish went and participated in that last year.
Just in the open field. I mean, I guess
there
technically it's open. There's just no men's or women's categories, but there had never been a woman to do it.
Exactly. So in that article that I wrote, that's sort of what we go into, and whether it needs to become a men-women sort of thing, or whether it's just to have an open class. And Trish comes from a equestrian background, so it's always interesting hearing her background in that and how usually men and women compete together, at least in some of the equestrian disciplines. And so her opinion was more that they could probably just keep it together.
Which is cool compared to, a lot of cycling disciplines where, you have very obvious differences between the men's and the women's fields. This seems to be one where women might actually be able to be very competitive against the men. I've always said we have more style, so.
Well, there you go. If you combine them, who knows? So anyhow, this year Trish gives us an update on how that journey to more women participating, which is part of her goal. She wants to be part of it, but she also wants to get more ladies on bikes. So we go into how to jump first time at a bike park, what to do, equipment you're going to need, and Trish just is super energetic. You'll hear that in her voice. She definitely reminds me a bit of Gilmore Girls, and is it Gilmore Girls?
Yeah, Gilmore Girls with Lorelai and Rory with the fast talking.
I'm always super pumped and super amped to ride and just go out and do stuff and make change in the world when I talk to Trish, and hopefully you will be too, but definitely you'll have to have a ear to hear her. And
you might need to slow it down.
Combined with my super slow talking and her super fast talking, you'll have to play around a little bit, but I think it's worth it to get psyched and also maybe make some progress in your pumping and jumping and...
/ really want to buy new shoes. We need to go shoe shopping after this, actually.
Exactly. So hopefully you enjoy this episode. Throw something into the comments for us if you do, and enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, Molly.
Hey, Trish.
How are you?
Good. How's it going?
So good.
That's awesome to hear.
Hi, Peter.
Hey, Trish.
You get you're moving a shed? What was that?
We're at my parents' today, and Dad had one of his sheds needed to be shifted. Moving was the wrong word, but we had to shift part of it because it was off center and the doors weren't shut.
Oh, okay. So sticking some planks underneath one side so it sits up a little straighter?
It sounds like you've moved a shed before.
Professional shed mover at your service.
Yeah.
We were saying it's like our dads collect sheds because mine has 3 in our backyard. We've got how many in this backyard? 2?
3, but
3. Yeah.
The tiny home movement. You can rent them out for $1,000 a month here in Whistler.
Right?
No, we've definitely debated living in one of the sheds.
I don't think they'd even notice. They never.
But where would you put the lawnmower?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So where are you? Last time we talked on the phone, you were in Joyride, and this was early last year.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Well, I guess almost a year ago, because I think when I was talking to you for that article,
Was it fall or
I think
spring?
so. The article was published in January,
Oh, okay.
but I think it was
I think it was like late fall.
yeah, like it was just after you had done your speed and style stuff.
Oh, I was riding such a high. Thank you for that. That was so motivating to like connect with you guys at that point. I was like, I'm gonna take over the world.
Oh, that's
And then I
good.
didn't.
Oh.
Womp womp
Yeah.
womp.
Well, so then what's happened in the last year?
Well, I broke my eye socket. Um,
Holy.
so I've been off the bike since mid-June, with like double vision and like head problems and all this really annoying stuff that once you can overcome, you're going to be a better athlete. But while you're in it, it just like sucks. Um, and then that was mid-June. And then in March, I still went to Crankworks Rotorua, did the speed and style there. They had a girls category for us, as like follow-up to me doing it in Whistler. And so they invited 8 girls, which was amazing. It was a full category, and it would have had like ladders and a podium. And then two girls like didn't show up. They were really busy with other races, which is totally fine. It was like the World Cup racers who speed and style isn't really their thing anyway. But then 2 didn't show up, and then 3 couldn't get through the course. So it was Jill Kittner getting through the course like first, obviously, because she's rad. I started getting through it after like I saw her getting through it. I was like, no, this is doable. We can do this. And then I knocked myself out before qualifications. I was getting a little too confident and got a little wind blown on one of the boner log, and knocked myself out and was pulled off by the medics. I couldn't remember the 3 words, so they said, no, you're not riding, which is probably like I felt super bad, and like I was like, no, I'll ride, but it's definitely good that they were there because I was not in a state to make decisions like that.
No.
And then Casey Brown started getting through the course, so it was the 2 of them that represented for the ladies. But it was a bit of a lackluster follow-up to what I was like hoping would happen. It felt like there was a lot of momentum built after the Whistler one, just with like people getting interested and messages, and like just it felt like there was a lot of excitement, and then it was kind of like womp womp with like not even a full podium. So yeah, so that's okay. There was a Whistler one this year, and there were 2 girls that showed up for the Whistler one. It was the same idea that it wasn't a men's and a women's category. It was just a category, which I think is actually kind of rad. It kind of like goes back to, if I'm rambling, let me know.
No.
Like I used to compete in horseback riding, and we were all in the same ring, and it was just like, you're an athlete, you compete against other athletes. Obviously it's a little different because the guys have a little bit of a leg up in terms of like how long they've been doing it for, but it's cool because it builds momentum, and you see them practicing, getting through the course, starting to like get the tricks, and you kind of get pulled along with that, which was really cool. So there were 2 girls that tried to qualify this year. I don't think either of them did, but I mean, that's one more than last year, so that's rad. Yeah.
Well, that's good. So, I mean, I've seen in your Instagram, like you were at the Air Dome and stuff. Like, is that
so
current
I just started
stuff?
getting back on. I just started getting back on. I work up there. It's one of my like 18 jobs here.
Awesome. I like that you're still doing that. Nice.
But yeah, so I was up at the Air Dome a few times this summer, just sussing it out. And then last week I got back on my bike. I just decided that I was kind of sick of not doing anything. So I'm going to ride again. And the symptoms are diminishing. So I know it's semi-irresponsible, but it's monitored with doctors. So it's not like a completely naive jump back into the sport. It's anyway. So yeah, the Air Dome is sweet. I don't coach up there per se, but when I'm up there and there are people that need coaching, it's kind of like we're not covered to coach. But if there's like, for instance, there was a girl last week who showed up on a giant rain, and it's just like, well, it's not really going to be that fun for you. So here, take my bike and let's go work in the back for a little bit so you get used to like this kind of bike and being on wood and not on dirt, and we're going to get you in the foam pit. So it's cool. So like that kind of stuff that just kind of facilitates play as opposed to coaching. They don't really do lessons up there. It's not like a joyride thing. But yeah, that was fun.
Okay, so let's pull some stuff out of that then. So Up at the Air Dome, is it essentially like a joyride bike park? So, a indoor bike park, we should say. It's all wood jumps and whatnot, and you just sort of pay your way to get in, and then you can sort of jump around regardless of the weather.
Yes and no. Yes, it's a regardless of the weather thing. It definitely gets busy when it's raining, but it is tiny. Maybe I can find it on Google to see how actually big it is. But it's really not that big at all. It's smaller than like the vert room at Joyride. And it's here, 8,400 square feet.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's not, Joyride for comparison, which is in Markham, Ontario.
100,000.
Yeah. Like 90,
Yeah.
I remember 90,000, but you could be right. They've expanded into
It's
a new room.
102,000, I think is what it's at now, or like 1158 or something like that.
Huh.
So yeah, the Air Dome's definitely a lot smaller, and the foam pit's like smack dab in the middle. And then there's a resi line on one side with a step up, and then the other side there's quite a lot smaller jumps. So the transition from like the little jumps into the foam pit, it's a big jump, and so people generally use it as like, well, there's kind of two types of people that go up there. One that are like training and gonna like land their back flips or front flips or triple tail flips or all that kind of stuff. And then some people who go up as like a novelty and just want to jump in the foam. But the roll-in is pretty huge. So like they'll get up there, they'll see the roll-in, and then they'll be like, maybe not. Or their parents will see it and they're like, no, you're just gonna ride this jump. Because it's
Awesome.
a big roll-in with a big G out at the bottom and then a long straight bit. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. But it was built oh my gosh, maybe like 10 years ago. And it was like, I think it was like a training facility for one of the local athletes or something like that. That's a rumor, but let's go with that. And then it has slowly developed, and the camps use it. SGC uses it in the summer, so it's kind of like one of their properties, and they come in for a daily session. And then I think in the winter, I think, don't quote me on this, the ski club uses it because there's a trampoline behind the foam pit. So we get like the ramps on one side, and then they have a trampoline into the foam on the other side.
I was going to ask you that because I remember some of the skier camps. I've always stayed at the Whistler Athlete Center function, so you get a bunch of the athletes using the gym and stuff down there.
Yeah.
And I remember that's where they were going a lot of time, was up to the Air Dome, which sort of confused me because I also knew that you could ride there. So
there's a trampoline that we used to have access to because we had a little tramp bike for it. But I think what was happening was all the riders with their like muddy 510s were jumping all over the tramp and just kind of ruining it. And so there's no trampoline there anymore. Oh, sorry, the trampoline is there, but like there's a gate over it, and they've locked like the gate to it, so it's kind of dangerous to jump on if you jump on it now. But like the skiers take the gate off, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, it's so I've never been up there while they're up there, but I would imagine it'd be pretty cool.
Okay, so let's drill in here and see if we can pull out some stuff. You have this girl who's she came on a Rain, which is a downhill bike, right?
Yeah, all mountain kind of enduro-y type thing.
So that's what I got when I did the women's night at Whistler last summer.
Oh, yeah.
And so first, for the purposes of learning to jump, and certainly ride in an indoor park or ride, dirt jumps or something like that, it's not the appropriate bike. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and I just put my foot in my mouth, I guess. So, being one to peer pressure, any bike is the appropriate bike. But set yourself up for success. Get there's rentals up there, and it's like $30 for a session, which is 3 hours. So, if you're wanting to get into it, get on a hardtail, because what's going to happen is if you're on the Rain with the dual suspension, every movement you make, all the kind of the pressure control, the ebbs and the flows, it's going to get absorbed by and changed by your suspension. Mm-hmm. So as soon as you're on a hardtail, A, it's a lighter bike. B, all your movements are going to be felt more, I guess, authentically. That's not the right word for it. But your efforts are going to equal reactions, as opposed to it getting diminished by your suspension. And it's going to give you a better feel for the lips and a better feel for the landings. And it's just the geometry is set up for jumping as opposed to for climbing or for tech or for the one of my other friends was there, and he actually stuck her on his bike too. So it was actually, you might know him, Brian Shook, one of the Joyride boys, Joyride 150 that is.
Yeah, I think I've met
So
Brian.
he had a Trek ticket and he took a liking to her. So they went and they hung out for a little while. But she like her progression as soon as she got on that bike was like noticeable. So
Right. And so another key thing is that, even just learning to ride, we're essentially talking about here, right? Like all the stuff you're talking is
yeah,
what we do on single track on our cross country bikes is, that idea of pushing into the ground and
yeah,
feeling the terrain like you're talking about. So,
yeah,
this is a beneficial thing. Again, if we go to Joyride or to the, all the communities now are building pump tracks and jump parks and all this stuff, if you can find yourself a jump bike, which is basically a small 26-inch mountain bike, usually,
yeah.
right, with slicker tires and flat pedals, I guess would be the other
The
key.
flat pedals is huge too because what happens is a lot of the girls come and guys. Sorry, I just coach a lot of girls right now, so
No,
a
it's
lot of people
everyone for
come
sure.
from the cross country background with the clipped pedals, and as soon as they try and jump, because they're used to that, it's not that they have like they're cheating, but they're just used to being clipped in, so they'll pull up as opposed to that
Hmm.
pressure control, as opposed to pushing through your pedals and doing the work on the lip. They'll do the work in the air, and then it kind of it's a
Goes
lot more
wrong.
awkward. It's a
Yeah.
lot more. Yeah. Even I was talking to my friend Michaela who rides clipped, and she can't like riding flats for her is a totally different ball game. And
Hmm.
like mind you, she's like phenomenal, and watching her ride is like a treat. But it's interesting that the technique changes so much, and it's huge to get people on flats if they're used to riding clips on cross country.
No, and
Just to
I know
just
it's
really quick
like
jump
it's
in.
definitely it's different, but it's also like to know how to do that changes.
Yeah,
I think how you use like you can use the clips and they can help in especially in a cross country or road application,
yeah,
but when you know how to do that, it changes. Like you're able to bunny hop or J hop, correctly. You're
yeah.
able to pump with the train. So I know like Jeff Kabush has been on about it for years that that's something we're doing wrong in early development.
Getting everyone on flats now.
Yeah, so that the kids
Yeah,
have those years of BMX training where they learn to stand up and pedal and they learn to push into the ground so that then when
yeah.
they're on single track on their cross country bikes, or even just road riding, pumping over a speed bump or something, they're much more efficient.
Yeah, and that's like I completely agree with that. I think that having the flats and having that basis and it, it teaches the basics where it's the building block for so many things. Like there's no roots and all that, but if you can pump over a roller and get that moment of like softness over the top of it, that's exactly what you're going to do over the roots. And if you can't do it over the roller, you're not going to be able to do it over the roots. So
100%. Yeah, it's all the same. It's all the
yeah.
same. And that's the cool thing is that once it starts transferring to everything, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So where else can we go? So you have this, sort of someone coming in first time, again into a bike park type scenario. You've got them onto the rental bike. Where do you go? Like that's, a lot of the sports. We're looking at different sports in this podcast and stuff. So what we also like to know is, when you're early to swimming or early, first time golfing, it's sort of coming into something. You're standing alone in the middle of this big jump park,
Yeah.
and as you say, the big rolling in ramps. What do you do? What's our first time in the air dome look
Honestly,
like?
the first thing I do, because generally people that come up to the air dome for the first time are just blown away by how like huge it is, even Joyride,
Hmm.
and you just have that moment of like awe. The first thing I try and do is like welcome them and hey, like welcome to the air dome, so that they're not just standing in the door and like half in, half out, and then get them on a bike because as soon as they're on the bike, it gets rid of that hesitation because often and you'll notice them like, oh, I'm just coming up to watch, but they brought a bike, so they really want to ride, but they're saying they want to watch. So I'm gonna get you on that bike so we get the ball rolling, and then just have them feel the wood, feel the traction, if they are on a different bike, just roll around on the flat bits. They see the jumps, they see all this stuff that's probably pretty intimidating at first. Everything's new and foreign, and try and find stuff that they recognize. So like, hey, like these rollers over here, this is the exact same as you'll find on like Easy Does It. And hey, this like back area, picture this as like a berm, and let's roll around in here for a bit and like feel how your tires and the knobs track on the wood and just get them rolling, because as soon as you can get that forward momentum and them trying new things, and they'll start picking it up on their own. But if they just see it all and it's all new, the chance of them just sitting on the side is much greater. They usually come up with a friend who's been there before, and then that's why they're kind of okay to watch. But the big thing is just to get like the momentum moving forward, and then they'll start kind of picking it up on their own as well. Does that kind of answer that?
Yeah, I think get rolling is a good one, and see the environment. I think bringing a friend and then
Yeah.
finding a friend. Someone like yourself that's gonna smile at them and get them psyched, and give them some of that like direction of where to go.
Bringing a friend is huge too. Someone to learn with, because if you're out there alone, you'll like pick something, try it, okay, cool, I figured that out ish, and then the momentum kind of slows down. Whereas if you're there with a friend, it's like exponential. Like you'll be like, oh my gosh, I just did this. Do you think like you should try this? Like, yeah, you should do this, and then it like the excitement elevates and everything just gets going. And yeah, definitely the sessions where there's more than one person go off. So
Right.
yeah.
What about equipment? Is there anything like does someone, do they need to buy pads, or do you feel like most places now that are renting bikes also rent pads?
I think everywhere that has like this kind of facility, they rent pads. But okay, well, if it's your first time there and you're unsure of the sport, like definitely don't buy stuff straight away. But at the same time, a lot of the rentals are not going to like fit as well as they would if they were your own. And I'm kind of on the fence with like this, because yes, you can show up with flat-soled running shoes and like you can rent a helmet, you can rent pads, you can rent the bike. But at the same time, it's like if you really want to get into it, as soon as you kind of know, then you want to buy your own stuff, because it's going to make you that much more comfortable. It's going to make you that much more confident. You're going to be able to do all the stuff you want to do without your pad slipping and all that kind of stuff that gets distracting. But you can show up. The Air Dome, the rule is you just have to have your legs covered. So whether it be with pads or with jeans. Joyride, I don't think we even have a rule like that. But we do suggest that people wear pads. But there's no rule, because it's such a dynamic facility. There's so many different,
Right.
I guess, disciplines. But the Air Dome, it's like you're probably just going to huck yourself in the foam pit. You should have pads on.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah. Another thing, though, is that a lot of people wear full faces. And if that's the case in the foam pit, I suggest taking the visor off. You can channel your inner Nikolai Rogatkin and take your visor off, because if you're landing in the foam upside down or sideways or whatever, the visor is like an extra flak to get caught, and it often like kind of twinges your neck in weird directions, or it snaps down and it breaks. And basically, if you're up there and you don't want your visor to break off, just take it off.
That seems fair.
Yeah.
You mentioned shoes before, so what are the cool shoes to have for?
Yeah. I'm in love with my 510 Sleuths right now. It's a slimmer shoe. It's a casual shoe as well. So it's not that like big bulky moon boot that you see in like downhill. It looks almost like a Converse or like a Vans, I guess.
Okay.
And I love them because it's still the 510 rubber, but it's a smaller foot like last, and so it fits my, let's say, dainty feet.
Mm-hmm.
My feet are dainty. I have elephant limbs. And then I also have the Free Riders, it's a little bit bigger of a sole, and I wear those up there as well sometimes. But my Sleuths are definitely my favorite for Air Dome, dirt jumps, pump track. And then I moved to the Free Riders for
like you say, this is like a Converse or like a skateboard type shoe.
Yeah. So any flat-soled skate shoe, like that kind of idea will do. For years, I was just buying whatever is cheap in like the discount bin at West 49, which was great because I was blowing through like 2 pairs of shoes a month, which was ridiculous.
Holy.
Yeah, well, I realized it was because I was buying shoes at a discount bin at West 49. And if I just invested a little more money into a pair of 510s, I had my Free Riders for like an entire season last year, and my Sleuths I just got my second pair because I want another color. But I've had those ones since I think this time last year, and I'm blown away by like how long they've lasted, because like, even my shoes in everyday life don't last that long. But yeah, any flat-soled running shoe, or sorry, like skate shoe type thing will do. A lot of people come in with like a running shoe thinking that this is like, an athletic sport. I can wear a running shoe like an Asics or something, but it's so narrow. Like, yeah, there's a bit of room at the ball of your foot there, but it's so narrow under the arch, and there's so much going on underneath the shoe for your strike pattern and for all that your traction on the pedal is just not what it could be, and it results in a little bit more sketch than is desired.
For sure.
Yeah, plus the skate shoes just look cooler.
Yeah, it's all about how you look.
100%.
For sure, which is why I wear this loose, so that I can look super trendy.
So you mentioned the foam pit a couple times, Trish. Is that something that, I know at Joyride, it's a lot of the kids love the foam pit.
Yeah.
Is that something, this first time adult, we just interviewed a swim coach in our last episode, and they were calling adult onset swimmers. So if we have adult onset jumpers or cyclists or dirt jumpers, would you introduce them to the foam pit first time out?
Yes and no. First time out as in like first time biking, or first time out as in like first time to Whistler and they've biked in other places?
Yeah, I'm picturing someone who's like able to ride a bike outside, maybe on the road or like,
Okay.
casual cross country, but, has come with, ladies weekend at Whistler or, whatever. They've come and they want to try downhilling and, it's raining. So they're at the...
For sure.
The area.
Yeah, okay. Cool. If it's such a case-by-case basis, I love watching that transformation from seeing something that looks terrifying that they don't think they could ever do and immediately dismiss, to all of a sudden, like, pulling themselves out of the foam with like the biggest smile of accomplishment and success on their face. And I think that if I can help facilitate that like safe transition into that, then that's sweet. Sometimes there are riders who it is too much new stuff, being on a different bike, being on a different surface, being in a different setting altogether, that like maybe it's like a work towards. But by the most part, there are two different roll-ins at the foam pit. So if we can't get them off that top roll-in with that big G out, there is a side roll-in with a different lip that can still get them in the foam. And I think that is attainable most of the time for someone who does have a little bit of confidence doing some jumps. It's pretty easy to convince people to do things when you start on the smaller jump line and you build up their confidence like that, because it just, again, forward momentum. But I wouldn't bring someone in there that is like super new to biking, because jumping is fairly technical and there are some big roll-ins and some big lips, and you want to be safe. Because if there is a crash, then it's going to turn them off the sport, maybe, and that's never ideal. You want to keep them in it for as long as possible.
And the jump is even at Joyride, the small jump's relatively big. The roll-in, like you say, is actually pretty like big as well. Like it's fairly steep. But even the jump itself is bigger than, it's, I don't know, you could probably compare it at Joyride, but it's, bigger than the beginner jumps for sure.
For sure, yeah. And the foam pit now this year has, is it a 6-foot lip? Or so it's like, it's not a small lip. There's definitely some up to it, and you're standing beside it. It's taller than you are, and there's no, like in some of the photos, if you look online, there's a small lip that's available, but that's been blocked out. So the options this year are fairly committed, and then there's like awkward gaps in between some of them too. So you have to know which lip you're going for, and be confident in your direction. But no, the roll-in too, there's a banked style roll-in on the one side, but that's for the small jumps. And then there's the actual like proper roll-ins with the G-outs at the bottom that go into the foam. So you do have to be fairly confident.
Okay. I want to go over some terms because you have a lot of vernacular.
I'm throwing out a jargon, I apologize.
So that's fine. We always go over, it's no different in golfing or swimming. There's always different things, right? So why don't we go into that? Well, I was going to come back to sort of the idea of jumping and that whatnot, but let's go through just some of the, so you mentioned lip. So can you tell us what a lip is in bike skiing?
Okay, so the lip is essentially the takeoff of the jump. So it's a nice curve, comes in varying heights, and is designed to put you into the air.
Okay, awesome. What about G-out?
It's that, okay, so I definitely didn't take enough science, but it's that moment at the bottom of the roll-in where the bike kind of gets away from you. And I need to Google the term for G-out.
I think you're right, though. It's like when it's because you're going down a big, thing. Yeah. Everyone's felt that in like, when the elevator stops at the bottom of the elevator shaft, or I'm trying to think of another time in life. It's like when you jump down something and you like sort of hit that bottom, right? Like you sort of squat down and you're just like, huh. it's that moment on the bike, but ideally you're sort of going to continue rolling out of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And when you're in the joyride or airdome setting, it's just with that big roll in that people aren't always used to. It can be a bit of a shock.
Okay. How about roll in then?
The roll in is the hill before the foam pit or before the jump in order to give you a little bit of speed and momentum in order to get over the jumps and into the foam.
Okay. What else? Do you got any, Molly, that...
I think even just before we go into how to pump, what exactly a pump track is for people who haven't actually been on one.
Yeah, a pump track is a course track is a course of rollers and berms set up to have a rider pump. Can I use pump in the definition? Is that allowed?
Sure.
Okay. Designed to have a rider pump around it as opposed to pedaling. And so the rider will absorb and push on the ups and the downs of the rollers in order to generate momentum to get around.
Okay. And then, so the whoop is just one of the rollers. So like, one of the things you're rolling over. So like a hump on the hump on the trail,
like
or on
a speed bump or something like that. And it's essentially just that.
Okay. And then I think the last one then is a berm.
Yeah, a berm is a corner, like a bench corner. So you can kind of ride up on the side of it as opposed to it just being a flat corner like you would see on the streets.
Right. Okay. Very cool. So, how to pump is something that I work on people with, but it can be tough sometimes, especially if you have some of these adult onset jumpers we're talking about. People who have been using clipless forever, people who always sit down. So how do you go about getting someone pumping?
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite lessons. I did a lesson on a pump track just 2 weeks ago, and it was so great. The first thing I do is get them to the pump track, obviously. So we're at the pump track. Lower the stance a little bit so that they have access to the range of motion. A lot of times when we're trying something new, we stiffen up and are a little too tall. But if you do just lower that stance, you can bend your elbows, you can bend your knees, you can soften your hips and your ankles, which will allow the bike to move more underneath them. And then once the bike is moving separate to their body, essentially, you can start adding in the pumping. But it's getting that split first and getting them comfortable and the bike freely moving underneath them that is the first step. Because once that's separated, they can then add more power to it. But if there is no separation, it's kind of hard to get the idea of pumping down. So feeling out the ups and feeling out the downs and just letting them roll around is my first go-to when you're going to a pump track.
Okay. I always have you ever had any luck or, people where you've compared it to other sports or a certain feeling or a keyword that you use to help people?
Yeah. So, well, before we even get on the bike, I'll have them get in a basketball or a volleyball stance just so that their knees are bent, their hips are bent, their arms are forward and ready, they're ready to catch a ball or something like that. And then as soon as they're on the bike, if they're a horseback rider, it's the easiest lesson ever because they've got it immediately. Because they're already used to that 2-point position. They're used to having the softness in their hands and being able to drive through their feet it would be in stirrups. And then the other thing that I really like that the girls really get is feeling, if I could, I tell them about trying to feel their ponytail flying on the back of their, if it's out of the back of their helmet. It kind of gives a visual, and so if I say that feeling where your ponytail is flying through the air, so they'll really drive into the roller at that bottom bit there, and then they'll get soft and let the bike come up underneath them over the top of the roller. And if they can get that feeling on the pump track, then the transition into the jumping lesson is super easy. And then and it's fun to take pictures of that moment too because everyone's ponytails are in the air and it looks like they're going really fast. So
awesome. That's such a great answer. That's what I was hoping.
Yeah.
Because I've never thought of the ponytail analogy, so that's good.
Scientific terms. The ponytail floats. Yeah.
Ponytail effect.
And so I think that's the reason that this is so important, why these flat pedals, why going to a jump park or a skate park and then learning how to pump is because, like you say, once you get this, I would say anything is easier, but it's the next step is
100%.
jumping. The next step is jumping, right?
Yeah. I guess in the past described myself as like a lazy rider.
So our ponytails are flying. We're pumping a little bit. What I'm wondering now is, jumping. How do you then progress someone towards jumping? Do you do that in the pump track, or where are we going to go from there?
No, like as soon as you're pumping around and feeling that that flying ponytail, and can get around the pump track without pedaling, I'll bring them to the jump. So at Joyride, it's easy. Here in Whistler, it's super easy because there's a pump track right at the end of the dirt jumps. Even in the bike park, it's pretty easy because there are trails with rollers at the top that progress into jump trails at the bottom. So it's pretty sweet, pretty progression focused. So just bring them right over the jumps. I'll walk them if it's on the way, kind of by the jumps, or give a quick little intro to one on the side or something like that. That just explains a quick basics of the jump. So show them the lip, show them the like exact takeoff point, show them the table on the top and tell them that, this is, you can land on this, show them where the knuckle is, show them the landing. And then do a demonstration so that they can kind of see how it looks. My favorite thing to do as well is after the pump track, bring them to the side of the jump so they see that side profile, and then show them the arc of exactly where that roller would be, and say, this is the exact same as a roller. You're going to do everything the same. You're still going to, look ahead. You're still going to push through your pedals in that, in the lip. You're still going to get soft over the top. Let your ponytail fly right here. And then you're going to spot your landing, everything that you do on the roller, but now the top of the roller is just cut off, and we're just going to bring that feeling through without that top bit of dirt there. And that's, as soon as they make that connection that they've already done it, it becomes that much easier. I still have everyone roll through it the first time, though, before getting air, so that they can feel the lip, feel the landing, feel the track, feel how fast the dirt rolls, feel what their bike does when it kind of clunks over the top. Have them do it slow too, so there's someone in front of them maybe crashes, they can absorb the lip as opposed to launching off of it. And then once you can do that, then you can start adding the air, which is a pretty cool feeling.
Mm-hmm. What would you do? Sometimes you'll see people, it's almost like a drop off, but sort of launching straight out from the jump versus what I would call like a leading with your front wheel. So the front wheel goes up and the front wheel comes down and sort of hits the landing first.
Oh, that flat?
Yeah, so rather than sort of coming up and then sort of all in your J-hop motion, right? So the front wheel is landing on the transition, or leading onto the transition. When you have someone who's almost leading with their rear wheel onto the transition, like they're landing almost in a wheelie and slapping the front wheel down. Oh, yeah, okay.
I'd take them back to the pump track. I'd get them a little bit more centered over the bike so that their front end is a little bit more controlled. Generally, if they're landing with their rear wheel first, they're a little bit too far back, maybe a little hesitant, and they're not bringing their front end down over the jump. So remind them that once they're in the air, they still have to kind of pump down the backside.
Right.
But it's all about, again, safe progression and building that confidence. So have them get those feelings on the pump track where they're centered, where they're balanced, where they can, their elbows are up and they're driving down that backside as well. And then hopefully, ideally, it would correct the imbalances back on the jumps, and they'd be able to, centered and balanced, they'd be able to get air and land with both wheels first on the top of the jump, and then they can work towards making the backside. Often it is maybe they're just trying to get too much air too soon, and just think about, when you're dropping, how you want that single sound of both wheels landing at the same time. Same with jumping. And so just have them go up the lip, land on the table part with both wheels, and then they can kind of add a little more speed and think about hitting the backside.
Right. No, I like the pumping, bringing it back to sort of pumping down the backside, and even setting that front wheel down sometimes, right? To get the landing. Have you ever tried putting a shirt or something on top of a roller, on top of a whoop, and having someone try and pop over it in the pump track or on a whoop?
I've never done anything like that because I don't have very many shirts. But that's a good idea. I have done. What have I done? I've done
a stick would be the same thing.
Yeah, I've done.
Peter made me do it with my own jacket, though. That was mean.
Yeah.
So
it's a good jacket too.
Yeah, it was a really nice jacket.
She jumped though, so if anyone's looking to get up, you got to up the stakes.
Yeah. put like your lunch on the jump so that
Yeah.
if you want to eat, you better jump. Well, one of the things here in the bike park that we're taught to teach is the credit card airs. So it's about the height of a credit card, and that gets the idea of jumping, the idea of getting air without the going, to the moon. And that's a good visual for people as well, because everyone knows how big a credit card is. And then the other thing that I would do at like Joyride or something on the flats is just like the front wheel lifts and the rear wheel lifts over a pool noodle or over a 2x4, because it's just, again, something visual just to get over. But I've never worked with anything over the rollers. I've kicked lines in the dirt before as well, just so like if this were a jump, this is where the lip would be and this is where the knuckle would be. But I like that idea of putting something visual on the rollers too, so they can see it.
Yeah, and very similar to your idea of it's the exact same as a J-hop or a bunny hop on flat ground, as long as you're leading with your front wheel.
I think I want to take a lesson from you and like learn all these new techniques.
Well, we might need to trade back and forth.
For sure.
I'll work on my ponytail and then we can go.
Yeah. We'll get you a wig. Halloween's
that's a date. Whether
good witches one.
So that brings us in here. So where are you? Have you you're potentially? Can you say where you're going in 2017, or does it sort of?
I always end up putting my foot in my mouth. This is, don't I? I like have these delusions of grandeur and then I crash. So
welcome
right
to
now,
bike racing.
Yeah, I know, right? Right now, I can not actually confirm much. My lease ends at the end of September, and I might have my apartment for the winter. If I have my apartment for the winter, I find out hopefully soon, then I'll be in Whistler for the winter and doing trips to like the Coast Gravity Park and all that fun stuff. But if I don't, then I'll be back at Joyride. Which is amazing, and I can't wait. Regardless, I think I need to come do a week or two there. And then still heading out to New Zealand in March for Crankworks Rotorua, working for the BC Bike Race this year. So I'll be back in BC definitely in July for that. There's a new stop to the Crankworks tour happening in Andorra, I think. I should know this. It's my job. But it's, I think, the same time as the BC Bike Race, so that's going to be interesting. And then back again in Whistler for next summer, so probably May through August, September. But again, there's a lot up in the air right now, depending on whether I get my apartment or not. So we'll see.
So is the objective to race some more speed and style?
Yeah, I mean, the objective is to like continue to see what my limits are, and build momentum and just kind of keep saying yes to these things. I've been given so many opportunities that I don't want to waste. B, feel like I had to take these and I had to run with them because I've been given these opportunities where I can play in the speed and style and I'm allowed to, and I have these amazing facilities around me that allow progression. I'm surrounded by these inspiring riders who help me with all these tricks and all that. So one of the girls that I know on Instagram and Facebook, as silly as that sounds, I finally got to meet in real life during Crankworks, and she suggested La Poma in Spain for a little bit, and now I'm like looking up flights to Barcelona for January, February, and it'd be so cool just to do that. But yeah, I think I rambled and got off track. I forget where I was.
I got to go to Girona in Spain for like a week and a half last January, and it was the coolest thing ever.
Oh, what was that for?
So I was traveling with Jeremy Powers. I was his team manager. So he was there for cyclocross stuff, or he was in Belgium for cyclocross, but we decided we needed some sunshine. So I went to Girona to train for a week, and I was lucky I had somebody that lent me a bike and could actually ride, and so good.
Oh, that's so rad. Yeah, and also sunshine, you bring that up. I mean,
seriously.
Toronto was miserable in January, February, and Spain is definitely so much cooler than that. So it'd be really cool to be in that side of the world, and I mean, just surrounding. Okay, this is gonna sound so geeky and fangirly, but there's just so many riders that I see over there, like on the female side, that just like, oh my gosh, like if you can just like soak all that in and be part of that growing momentum, it'd be so cool to be a part of all that. So yeah.
I think that's awesome. It sounds like you got a lot going on, and yeah, lots of doors and opportunities, and just
trying really hard. So hopefully
take it easy on yourself. Don't. It sounds like you're doing the nice progression back. I think you're lucky that you have that air dome sort of let you ease into your into your sport and stuff. I think, and
some amazing doctors as well. And it's funny just having that help. And then also like this town, everyone here has had an injury of sorts, and so I mean they all have their stories and their ways of supporting healing, and it's important to surround yourself with people both in the successes when we're feeling great about podiums and all that, but it's also important to be surrounded in the injuries because people do isolate themselves and go through it alone, and that's not necessary. So anyway, that's
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully next summer we'll see you in Whistler. We're still kind of sorting out plans, but
where were you guys this year?
Well, we got married, so that sort of put a bit of a curtail.
Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, that unfortunately coincided with the Canada Cup race at Crankworks, so that was, you pretty much couldn't plan a wedding that wasn't going to interfere with some race, so...
Yeah, so...
you could have pulled a tippy and done it at the top of the mountain during Crankworks when all the homies are in town.
That's true.
Yeah, our parents might have killed us, but...
Oh, yeah, fair enough, yeah.
But yeah, I think next year, if things go according to the plan we're sort of working out now, we'll be in Whistler for a few weeks, so...
Oh, no way.
Yeah, we're toying with the idea of doing Ironman.
Yeah.
She went from like really stoked to just like ugh.
Yeah.
No, that was like it was stoked, but it was like oh my gosh, you guys are insane. Like
oh no, that's like the first quarter of the plan. The plan is to do we would come out and do Ironman, then we'd do the Wanderlust Festival, then we'd try to do Seawees for the half marathon, then do Crankworks for the XC and one of like the downhill things.
You guys should make it a little bit longer of a trip and come do BC Bike Race as well.
Yeah, because it's in
end of July?
No, it's earlier though, isn't it, Trish?
Yeah.
June.
Beginning of July.
Oh, okay.
I think it's 7th. It starts on the 7th or something like that. I should know this as well.
Okay, maybe. Because, I mean, Nationals are in Canmore, so maybe we'll just come out for the whole summer.
Just do it.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, BC Bike Race. Perfect way to get ready for Nationals. That's it.
More for Ironman. It's like Ironman.
Sure.
You just swim a bit every day.
Oh, man. Yeah, I might have to add that to the list.
Well, it's settled then. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, we've planted it. It's out there in the universe. Trish knows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so if you have any connections with, like, the Ironman people or something like this.
Why would Trish have connections to
Ironman Trish knows people? Everyone.
I've actually volunteered for the Ironman in the past. So I
she's got a lot of jobs, yeah.
Yeah, I do have a lot of jobs.
Yeah, and the jump park's near the water, I think. Isn't it near the lake?
Well, I live right on the lake that they swim across.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's so exciting.
Yeah. Okay. All right, well, I think that's good, Trish. I think we got lots of good stuff, but we also got to catch up a little. But definitely let us know if you do end up back for a week or for the winter.
Yeah.
Here in Markham, or in Ontario, I should say. We're not in Markham.
Yeah.
But,
I'm thinking I might be back in October no matter what for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
But then, I don't really know how the rest of the winter will unfold. But we'll see.
Okay, I think I'll probably be around for some of that too. So touch base for sure. I'd love to get together and we can do some riding down there and then
on the ground and jump over them.
Yeah. Awesome.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much for making time, Trish.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate this.
Love it.
Of course. Thanks, Trish. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you later. Bye.
As always, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Consummate Athlete Podcast. Please let us know what you thought about it, how it's impacted you, or changed the way you're training. You can let us know in the comments over at consummateathlete.com, or you could let us know over Twitter at Molly J. Harford and at Peter Glassford. And of course, if you liked the episode, please leave us a review over in iTunes. That would be super helpful. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great week, and we will see you next time.